The manhwa begins under the moonlit sky. A man says that the time has come, and explains that even after the demonic sect destroyed their clan, they survived only for revenge. Hands begin to emerge from the shadows, causing tension. He says that soon they will notice that the guards have disappeared, and that he will finish all this before it happens. The bloodshed continues, and we hear an old man saying that it is very noisy outside. He raises his eyes, and we see that they are a deep, dark red color. The man outside says that imagining him calmly meditating while his subordinates are being killed is wrong, and that he, as always, is heartless. The old man says he could say the same about that man, because he is flustered and knows nothing. He says that he is heartless, and says that a person climbing a mountain does not pay attention to the insects underfoot. Of course, he would not do that, because he would look at the summit, and that is the path to the peak of martial arts. The man says that is nonsense. Finally, we learn that his name is Kang Wunchun. He says that today he will kill him with his own hands, and the old man turns out to be a heavenly demon. Wunchun lunges forward, and a blue aura begins to glow from his head. He begins to charge lightning with it, and this is called the Heavenly Fist of Lightning. He attacks straight in the face of the heavenly demon and laughs, saying that this is all he is capable of. He begins to extend his hand, using his martial art called Heavenly Blood Tide, and tells Wunchun to watch and learn. When he starts releasing a real energy beam that meets Wunchun's fist, creates an energy battle in the style of Dragon Ball Z. Obviously, the heavenly demon wins because he flies right past Wunchun's hand. This injury is his face, and he recognizes the energy beam as the key to the sword. The heavenly demon says that today he will send him to his father and that he is finished. But Wunchun thinks otherwise and begins to use another technique. The heavenly demon looks surprised when Wunchun starts an attack with a palm strike called Heavenly Divine Palm. We see him break the energy beam, and the heavenly demon says in surprise that he cannot believe his hardened fist, harder than steel, lost to bare hands. Wunchun continues to strike him straight in the chest with his blow, sending light. He straightened his whole body, causing him to crash into the wall behind him. Wunchun begins to suffocate and says that he needs to stop talking about his father with his dirty mouth. And surely he has not forgotten all the evil deeds he did in his life. And this is the anger of all those people. The heavenly demon says that then he should have destroyed the roots of the Cloud Dragon sect. He does not know what kind of enlightenment he received, but he is sincerely surprised and cannot believe it. His heavenly demonic blood flow art broke through him, and thus left him no other choice, pulling out some kind of calabash. Wunchun asks if it is an elixir while the old man begins to gulp down this filth. Wunchun says that if he drinks an elixir of such a dose at once, he will suffer a demonic key deviation. Purple energy shatters the vessel as the heavenly demon begins to gain strength because his key is overflowing. But it is so strong that his face begins to look strained. When his eyes bulge, he lets out a very powerful roar to send. He released a shockwave around and forced Wunchun to raise his hands to shield himself from the wind that passed by him. But from behind, and when he turns around, the attack is already starting, and the heavenly demon says it's time for him to disappear. Then it puts a protective shield around Wunchun, and Wunchun thinks, recognizes what it is, but is just surprised. The man comes in, apologizing for being late, and says he was held up by idling. And the dude says he told him not to call him that lame nickname, then asks if this is the same enemy he was talking about. Wunchun says this is the man who claims to have come from another world, and if not for him, Wunchun would have died helplessly. The man loudly asks to wait, says he thought it was just a usual story about Murama, wonders why suddenly some unfamiliar high-level mage from another world appeared, sighs and adds that he also enjoyed reading it, but this completely ruins the mood. He says the author must be on fentanyl, because it doesn't make sense how suddenly another world appeared. They introduce us to the hero. His name is Jin Sayawun, and he is 23 years old. His phone starts vibrating, and we learn that he was discharged 6 months ago, and is now preparing to return to college. His boyfriend writes to him, asks if he wants to play ranked matches, and says he wonders if his friend has no one to play with. He says that, like many after service, before discharge he had a clear plan for the future. He wanted to get certificates, preparing to return to college and study what he didn't manage during his army service. But he missed too much in social life. He goes to the city, says he still has some money, but hesitates to look for a side job. He says that as a fan of Murama's novels, he spent a lot of time in fantasies, imagining himself as the main character of Murama's world. He enters the internet cafe. The cashier addresses him by name and asks if he is going to Loyal Ground again today, and Siwoon replies yes and asks for 10 hours. He says that hours also immersed in the Loyal Ground. And although during vacations he played only this game, after demobilization he took it seriously, and within 3 months got into the top 10. He logs into Discord and tells his boyfriend that he is logging in, asking him to wait in the lobby. He also earned a little from tournaments sometimes held in the internet cafe. 100 players jump out of a plane, collect scattered weapons on the map, and kill each other until only one remains. He is talking about PUBG. Then he gives coordinates and tells his boyfriend that there are 2 people there. He tells his son to look at 120 because there is a compass at the top in the game. He starts shooting and instantly kills both with a double headshot. His son screams and says that now only 2 people remain. Sayawoon says he is very loud and has already died once. Notes that it is strange that he still talks so much, and suggests farming for now and staying alive because they need to find a safe zone before leaving. And his guy says that he will only believe in him. The circle is shrinking. We see other players running to beat. They see loot on the ground, for example a medkit, and say they are surprised it is still here. It doesn't seem like he entered. Of course it's a bait, and anyone who played, you would notice it, because when he goes in to take free loot, we see the character Sayawoon sitting in the corner. Just sat in place and waited. The guy outside hears gunshots and sees that his teammate is dead, and he says he can't believe he was hiding here, so he needs to get out of here. He starts running instead of replacing his teammate, and he gets shot in the back of the head. Now he is the last one. Sayawoon, his friend, thanks him for carrying him, and he just tells him to get in line already. Ready, and that he should focus and start studying tomorrow. Words we all said, but still hear procrast. He gets a message on his phone, looks at it, and they ask if he is studying well. They say they sent money to pay for academy tuition and a little extra, so he will have something to eat, and apologize that they can't send more. He thanks her. We learn that it is his mother, and he says he will go to sleep soon. He informs his friend that from tomorrow he will no longer play, and his buddy says that they had agreed to go together to the clan war. But he replies that he cannot, because he has to start attending English courses, feeling guilty every time he sees a message from his mother, and has been living like this for months. After the quarrel that night, he begins endlessly scrolling through alarming news on his phone. Some short videos show people talking about how abroad they noticed people with mysterious abilities who call themselves players. Sayawoon says that when he tried to click to learn more, the video suddenly deleted itself. The fact that it is a family is strange, but he decides to just sleep through it. He goes to the academy, and his son says they need to prepare for the clan war. Sayawoon says he wants to help him in the last game, on the floor, leaving no other trace behind. Let's say the wounded person begins to wonder what that light was, says he just decided to study, and assumes it could have been punishment for deciding too late. When he slowly opens his eyes, he hears people speaking Russian, and is surprised by the loud conversations. Then he looks ahead and sees people fighting with swords and magic. Seeing them casting spells, he thinks it might be a dream. Noticing the statue, still completely confused. The statue says that 100 players detected. Steven wonders why he hears a voice in his head, and it is a bit noisy. They say the system initialization is underway, and we see the same blue screen. In Sayawoon's eyes, it is clear that he is still puzzled by the situation. Then they talk about language synchronization. The previously heard Russian is now immediately translated into Korean. Some fat man in front of him says that now everyone speaks his language. We see several people from the Muram setting talking about sex, and even mages discuss it. One asks Hiron what he did for them to end up in this situation, and Hiron says that this is actually what he wanted to ask, and turns to Escrow, asking why he brought him here. Escrow says that he is truly shameless, and will no longer believe his words. Hiron says it does not matter whether he believes him or not, because everyone is destined to kneel before the power of the Demon King. Escrow says that as Archmaster he promises this to him, and begins to summon lightning in his hand. He says he will kill him here, and then soon finish off the Demon King. He uses an ability called Escrow-style lightning, striking Hiron where he is. Escrow then says that he is the one who dragged him here, and Sayawoon observes everything and realizes that this is too realistic to be a dream. Then the statue says that it is going to start the game. The difficulty is easy. You need to get into the top 90. The chosen map is the capital of the Kingdom of King. Rewards will be given to players in the top 10 and above. The tutorial is skipped, and attacking in the waiting room is not allowed because everything is neutralized. The map appears before Sayawoon. The statue tells those who enter Cloyd Survival for the first time that it wants to give them a brief explanation. The game will last 100 years, and every day the map they are playing on will shrink a little. If they go beyond the limited map, they may suffer great damage, so be careful. The game will continue until only one participant remains. If the game ends or you are eliminated, you will return to your native world. Players who do not get into the top 90 will not be able to participate in Floyd's Survival again. Soon, thanks to Argus's gaze, they will descend where they want, be able to obtain items there and use them to get into the top 90, and he wishes them good luck. Sayawun wonders if he is now dreaming of the true land. The status window indicates that rewards will be given to those in the top 10 and above. Suppose the wound sweats from anxiety and says that even if it were a dream, he would have to find himself among all these crazy people. We see a guy licking his knife. Weirdo. Let's say the wound understands that he will definitely die. He says that even if it is a dream, he does not want it. And if it really feels like a game. But before he manages to finish the thought, someone calls him and calls him disheveled. The guy asks why he keeps looking back and asks where he is from. Suppose the wounded does not answer, and the dude swings a blade at his side, asking if he is ignoring him. The game starts the countdown, and he smiles. The dude asks why he is smiling in such a situation and calls him crazy. Easy. When the countdown reaches 1, Sayavun says that it is a very simple reason why he is smiling. He is dreaming such a fun dream, so he enjoys it, and thanks to the knowledge about the game that he recorded in the log, he can easily defeat scoundrels like him and survive. Now is the first day of the survival of the Cloids, and everyone starts jumping out of the airship, which actually, they exist and they just fly down, covered in an aura. I see where this gnome is looking. Sayawun says they descend in tight places where there are many things. According to the rules of the game, there really are more in crowds, but he thinks it's better to start from the outskirts to be safer. When he plunges sharply into the ground, he screams out of panic. He is unharmed. He does not move immediately after landing, and instead, he has to hold back vomiting because he feels very nauseous from the motion. He says that for now he just needs to enter the house, and he starts running and says that because of the dizziness, he did not see who landed with him. He continues running forward, goes through the door, and enters the house. He says that if he encounters an enemy without a weapon on him, it's the end for him. And he says he wonders if it is not that scoundrel swordsman from before, and that he should not provoke him. No one. And says that it was probably just the wind. And fortunately, he hears nothing more and can move on. He wants to start searching the house. They say that items are taken where you land, and he needs to look for them here. Someone tells him that he got a heavy crossbow. He says the crossbow is too heavy, but it's still better than nothing. He reaches for the quiver and pulls out an arrow. He says this while equipping it, and the way to use it comes to mind, so he starts reloading. For a South Korean army sergeant, this is a trifle, and he does exactly that. And it's very powerful because it breaks through half the wall and throws him back. He says it will be quite useful if he learns to use it properly. He looked around again but found nothing, and when the map becomes this large, he runs to a few more buildings. He says that if he doesn't meet an enemy at the start, he can calmly farm this area. A scroll lies on the table in front of him, and received a small scroll of healing, and if he tears it, the wounds will heal. He cannot believe that such an item really exists, saying that he should find more healing items, and he would like to have a bag for items. He sees a glowing purple book on the nearby shelf, and he picks it up, and it says that he received the Black Star Leader's martial arts book. This martial art allows him to emit dark energy through his fingers. He touches with his fingers and asks if he wants to learn it. He thinks this might start a tutorial or something similar. It begins to glow very brightly, and the pages start flipping right before his face. Then the book slowly begins to disintegrate. He looks at his hands confused and is not sure if that was all. The energy grows stronger with every second. Fill the table with energy, then throw it with all your might at the adjacent wall. He smiles and says that he actually learned the martial art just from the book. He looks at the wall and says that it will be really good. The fact that there are books on martial arts means that there are also books on magic. In any case, he is sure that Chloe's survival and her loyalty are one and the same. He searched the whole place, so now he goes out and heads to another. The events jump a bit forward. He says that the sun has already risen while he was working in the field, and he needs to quickly find a place to hide. From him, who says that this is the only house with the light on. The fact that the light is on means one of two things. Either a rare item is hidden inside. He slowly enters, trying not to make any sounds. He says he doesn't know how many people landed near him, but if someone is here, it could be either a complete pro or a complete novice. He is worried and looks to see if they are hiding on the second floor. He says he has a weapon, and if he surprises them with Black Star's technique, even if they are pros, he has a chance. I want to find out if this is also an item. It is called the Ring of Power, and increases the user's strength by 21 when worn. He wonders if it will really make him stronger, just because of where. He says that his whole body has become lighter because now he hardly feels the weight of the crossbow. Although before it was very heavy. If this added 20 strength to him, maybe he can check what it is. He looks for his stats, but starts going through words to find information about the character. He made it appear, and it showed that he is quite pathetic, and he doubts that he is considered a martial arts master just because he learned one martial art. He says that it is pretty cool and means compared to how he started from nothing. Quite fun, and he wants to continue thoroughly inspecting the first floor. He finds a subspace ring, which is exactly what he wanted earlier. There he says that he is constantly getting phone calls, and it is convenient. The status window says that to put an item in, he needs to take it and say or think the word subspace. If he touches the ring with the other hand while thinking of the desired item, the item goes into subspace. He can also pull an item out of subspace, and if subspace is full, nothing can be put in. He says that it is almost just an inventory from a game, and they have to use these things instead of a bag. Then he opens the subspace, which we see in front of him. He says that it feels strange when he starts putting the healing scroll in, and that it is convenient, and he does not have to carry it like a bag, and it would be much more convenient to have it in real life. Items and martial arts would be very useful if he could actually transfer them into reality. He wonders if people have already been eliminated, and says that looking at the internal interface, he is sure that a kill log will appear. Then he finds it, and says that only one has been eliminated, and he wanted to farm until only 90 people remain. However, he could search houses and find many consumable items. He was also lucky to find quite a bit of hidden weapons that he could use along with his martial art Black Star. He says that he seems to have reviewed them all and that maybe he should hurry. Better to stay here until dawn. Strong people he saw in the waiting hall walk in the dark, and at his level he definitely cannot defeat them. But if he hides and breaks into the top 10, he can direct points where needed, like today. He says that at night there will definitely be fewer people, so he should check another place before dawn, because the risk is worth it if he manages to find a good spot. When he goes out, he says that although he was constantly moving, he is not tired at all, and that the power ring is wonderful. But although his strength has increased, he still felt hunger and thirst, and maybe Floyd's survival is similar to reality. He says that he needs to eat something, so there is probably something to find in the city. According to the map, it should be somewhere here, but he doesn't know where the houses are, and he also hears it right behind him. He says he didn't hear anything until it already happened to him. They say it's actually a werewolf, because there's another one nearby. While he looks up, it flies in to attack, and he manages to dodge. We see that now 2 of them are looking at him, me and my brother, after a 48-hour party. He says he thought it was a PvP game and didn't expect monsters here. If he had known that this spreads, he would have just stayed in place, and formally he was still a ranker, so it would have been shameful if he was killed by the crowd. He notices a house in the distance, and eventually, he manages to get inside and closes the door, gasping for breath. He hears werewolves on the street and wonders if they will really come in. When it approaches, he begins to think about what to do in this situation. He sees them just outside. He says that judging by how it constantly sniffs everything around, it is probably looking for something. Shoots upward through a crack in the door into the forest, piercing. He says that this is good, and thanks to the ring of power he can shoot with one hand. Now he only has to deal with the last one. He looks around to see where it is, and to his surprise notices that now it is right in front of the door. He breaks down the door like Kool-Aid Man. He realizes that this is, and he raises the crossbow and shoots at it, but the werewolf raises its hand and deflects the arrow. Sayawun drops the crossbow as the wolf runs up, ready to finish off. He wonders if this is how they eliminate him. He says, not yet. He pulls out some weapon, possibly even a spoon, but fills it with a black star of martial arts and easily pierces the werewolf through. Sayawun says that he will not lose to the crowd in any way. When it also begins to disappear right before his eyes, he sighs with relief and says that he thought he was done for. He knelt down and said that it was good he had hidden the throwing dagger earlier, because he thought he would lose to the crowd and be defeated, which would have been very embarrassing. In front of him on the floor there is also a small packet. He noticed it, but when he opens it, there is only water and dried meat. He says that he can hunt for food himself and would really like there to be something else. When he starts chewing, he hesitates whether to look around. In the building he finds a piece of armor and says that it might be the same bulletproof vest from the log. It is too big for him, but immediately adjusts to his size. The status window indicates that it is an improved or calcium breastplate, and its resistance to fire and wind magic has significantly increased. He says that it is cool and has raised not just 1 or 2 attributes. He is sure that there is even more around. Something. But when he looks down, he does not see what he hit, so he kicks ahead of him and says that it could have been. He finds a hidden item, picks it up, and says that it feels like fabric to the touch. He puts it on. It is a night cloak. When he is in the cloak and stands still in the darkness, he blends with it. While he is hidden, magic will not notice him, and all his sounds will be completely muffled. He says it's like in Harry Potter. This means that at night he can avoid anyone he meets, and this is the best item for survival. Thanks to this, he can stay alive as long as needed. He did not understand how a hut could stand in the wilderness, since there was farming there, and it looks like today he will be quite lucky. However, still, at night he walks through the forest and says that he did not see anyone at all. Maybe it's because he accidentally ended up in another place. He hears someone behind him at the right moment, torn to shreds. He would scream if he had time to use this. Let's imagine that the wound put on a night cloak and hid in the bushes. The boy says he can't believe he will meet a mage here. Sayavan says he does not look strong, and if he is not mistaken, he can take care of him. Sayavan tells himself to calm down because this is not a person, it's just a game, and wonders why he does not dare to shoot. Then the man casts a spell called Escrow's Flame. He was hit right in the back. Those shots in the back were cool. This is not a corpse, but just a chest. It seems they are definitely in the game. It should contain items that he had, but he does not understand where the fire came from. Then we see a man with a big nose nearby, who says he cannot believe that someone who doesn't even know how to use magic dared to steal his things. He calls him a loser, and says that if he had died by the sword, he would not have felt the pain of burning. Sayavan says that fortunately he did not see him and just walked past, and that this cloak is definitely torn. For some reason he says that the boy should be considered honorable for dying by his own hands, but at the same time calls him Hiron. I get a little confused by these names, but Big Nose goes to check what the man dropped. Sayavan says that the deceased was a player, like him, and that the next one this man hunts might be him. As soon as he hesitates, someone will kill him and get a higher rank. While Big Nose sorts through the things we see in him, the attack comes from behind. He feels it hit his barrier, turns around, and we see the barrier cracking. The Great Nose wondered if he was making too much noise, saying that the scoundrel was to blame for everything. He pulls the trigger and squeezes it, releasing another shot that cracks the barrier again. The Great Nose says that his barrier will shatter into pieces if this continues. We see Se-woon still in a night cloak. The Great Nose cannot determine where he is, but he knows the approximate location, so he releases a fireball right at his side. He asks where he is hiding, saying that instead of being a coward, he should show himself. The barrier managed to protect him, but now it is completely destroyed. He looks very scared but continues to ask where he is hiding. Se-woon then raises the crossbow for another shot. He begins to read a spell but does not finish because a throwing knife hits him right in the forehead, and tears flow from his eyes. His last words were an attempt to pronounce the spell with all his might. The spell, while the attack cut off his head. He says that if someone sees the fire and follows it, it will be troublesome, so it's better for him to clean out the place as quickly as possible and leave. He decides to start with Big Nose's chest, throws almost everything he can into the subspace, and even gets another healing item. He obtains an item called the Escrow Necklace, which means he is a mage from the Escrow Magic Society. And this explains the confusion with the name, but he says it's just junk without properties, and advised him to just set it aside for now. While he was reviewing the items, one of them caught his attention. It is a circle stone that allows engraving a circle around the heart, and using mana. As soon as he uses it, he will be able to learn the magic of this circle, and he really wants to find out if he can become a mage this way. Now he remembers why the one who fled said that if he had time, he would have used this thing, and say that the injury says he is sorry, but he will use it to good effect. And that guy, instead, he was told to just put the rest in the inventory and examine it in a safe place. He goes deeper into the forest and finally ends up on top of a hill, saying he needs to find a place where he can use the circle stone. He notices several houses and approaches them, saying that it looks good. Inside, a prompt appears asking if he is sure he wants to use the circle stone, and he says that of course it warns him that as soon as he uses it, he will have to remain motionless for 3 hours. He will not be able to perform other actions or use items, and during the formation of the circle, he will feel a slight pain. He immediately starts to feel severe chest pain, and he restrains the screens they wanted and spent the next 3 hours in severe pain. We see him spitting on the floor and saying that it was supposed to be a slight pain, but he thought it was over, that learning martial arts was easy, but magic was not at all. Then he opens the status window, and we see that now he has 2 jobs simultaneously, and even a monostate. He says that since those 2 died, the number of survivors should be 45 out of 100, because someone named Nam Sagwang is killing almost everyone on the list. Fortunately, we see a flashback a few hours earlier, where a man is looking from the top of a tree at others, looking at his prey while the boy stumbles over a stone. He turns around and says that he just wants to get into the top 90. I assume that Sagwang raises his hand up, and that man is begging for his life. Then he reaches out his hand to his face and sticks out his head like a pimple and says that thanks to this, all participants will find out. Since he didn't even rob him, he says he just wants them to know his name, and of course, he is Sagwang. Now it is the 3rd day, and he receives a message, and he says he hopes he definitely won't run into Sagwang. Maybe he will get into the top 10. Before the start, a reward was announced for those who reach this ranking, and he wants to find out what it will be. He assumes it is about money and things, but it could mean the ability to use the skills and items he acquired here in the real world. And he sighs, saying there is a killer here who... It's crazy outside, and he is already ahead of events. He needs to finish quickly and move on. He clearly feels the power inside and thinks this is mana. He says that yesterday during the robbery he also found a magic book, and it is called the Magic Book of Wind Sphere. It creates a sphere of wind. The number of spheres he can create increases with the user's power. He says he knew this, and asks if... Yes, the book just disappears. He asks if that is all, and says it makes him learn magic right in his head. Magic, when he stretches out his hand and creates an air bubble, gathering mana on his hand. Palm, we see 4 balls forming. He asks if that's really all because they don't look like mine. A lot. He raises his hand as if brushing them away. Behind him, an explosion occurred after colliding with the wall. He says it's much more powerful than it seems, which means it will definitely come in handy. But he wonders why he suddenly feels so tired, and says it's probably because he used magic. Over time, a restricted zone began to appear on his map, and the grid narrowed. He decided to farm, staying at the edge of the zone. His chances of encountering another player decreased because half were already eliminated, and he needed to hurry with farming before the restricted zone narrowed even more. Because it's an old man who still hasn't moved from the spot, and I'm still just watching him walk along the path. And then he wonders, because on the floor there are only loot boxes and blood. He hears footsteps behind him and starts to panic. To the place where he heard the sound, causing the door to explode. Injured, and there are probably many powerful substances there because they managed to survive. 5 until this time, maybe he can kill them because they are weakened, and they definitely have good items. Fortunately, he quickly hid, otherwise he would have been killed. That Sayawun was watching from afar and thanked him for behaving. He says he will farm quickly and go to the outskirts of the Forbidden Zone, and then we hear an old man seen earlier, who says he is quite skilled. Sayawun realizes he has let his guard down. The man says there is no need to be afraid, he just wants to ask a few questions. He probably has many thoughts. Sayawun asks who he is, and he says that he probably wouldn't even understand if told, because they all lived different lives. Sayawun says he really is different from everyone he has seen so far. There is, and the old man asks if he has participated in such a game before. Sayawun asks what he means by game, and the old man replies that he has been watching him for a long time. He adapted quickly, and is sure that he already knows that this is not real. Sayawun wonders how long he has been watching, and how he did not notice him. He says that he was brought here for the first time, but in the world he came from, he already played a similar game. The elderly man says that is quite interesting, and Sayawun says that by his appearance it is clear that he is definitely not from this world. The old man says that it seems to be getting dark, and Sayawun replies yes, and adds that this is already the 3rd day. The old man asks if the moon in his world is as big as this one, saying that Rana says he did not notice. He says how big it was, but tells the old man that here it is very big, and the old man replies the same. Then he asks him to explain the mentioned game. Sayawun asks if he is sure it is worth doing it here, because in this place he can easily be ambushed. The old man says that maybe this can be a long conversation, so it is better for them to go to another place, and Rana asks how he knows he will not kill him. The old man grabs him and says he is sure he knows that well, but he must not make a sound if he does not want to become a target when jumping from tree to tree, having, say, an injury and moving lightly and very quickly, so fast that the bro's cheeks flutter in the wind. Say that Rana says he then had no idea what consequences their meeting would bring. That night in another place, the old man, after a brief explanation, says that his world seems very magical, and Sayawun adds that he can't really describe it well, but there is a highly developed civilization there. The old man says that explains how he managed to adapt to this place so quickly, and Sayawun wonders how long he has been watching him. The old man says he has been with him since they were thrown here, and Sayawun wonders if he is now reading his thoughts. The old man says he planned to enjoy the fresh mountain air for 100 days, but he became interested in what the other was doing. He spoke to him out of curiosity to find out why they were brought here, and has no intention of harming him, so he doesn't need to be cautious. Sayawun says he has no idea, and the old man replies that in his world there is something similar, and Sayawun says that is also it's a game just for fun, no one really dies. So when it comes to the motives of those supernatural beings who can kidnap people from another world, they are impossible to understand. So that he would know. The old man says he sees and sees. Sayawun continues and says he is sure this game will become a great opportunity for someone. The old man asks what he means, and Sayawun says he already knows. He adds that dying here is not the same as dying for real. When he dies, he will be given a rank and a corresponding reward. And Sayawun thinks these rewards will be items they receive here. The old man asks if he means what is on his body, and Sayawun says not only that, but also the skills and martial arts he has learned. Of course, he still has no proof. The old man says magic is really interesting, and doubts if it is a real possibility, and Sayawun says he is sure he won't need it. But for people who go through great hardships in life, these abilities could change their lives. The old man asks what makes him think that there are no difficulties in his life, and Sayawun says that he resembles a martial arts master, and probably has followers in his world, which cannot be compared to him, who is useless in his own world. So this will be a great opportunity for people who face difficulties. The old man laughs loudly, says that he really says interesting things, and as if some wound commands him to calm down. The old man then asks what he is constantly doing, touching the air, and says that the wound seems to claim that he does not know how to turn on the map. He told him advice and tricks useful in his world, and he himself heard stories about him and about sorrow. Arrived quite quickly. The old man lightly tapped the ground, so he says that it is already morning, and it seems to him that he has spent too much of his time when he, say, drops the wound on the floor. Sayawun says no, because staying with him is probably the best way to feel safe, and adds that he enjoyed listening to his stories, and the old man says that he learned a lot about the game from him, so he wonders if he can somehow repay him. Sayawun asks to teach him a few martial arts techniques because he really wants to survive until the end, and for this, he needs the help of this person. Sayawun asks what he means, and the old man says that it is about death, and asks what it will be like. The old man says that to succeed outside traditional paths, he will have to pay a high price. They ask if he is ready for this. Sayawun says that he does not want to sound broken. This is a recording, but people do not die here. The old man understands that he is right and says if so, then one can try that method, let's say. Rana asks if she will succeed. The old man says that at least it's worth trying, and Sayawun asks what he should do. The old man says that first he needs to check how much internal energy he has, and places his palm on his head. Then he is amazed at his internal energy. He says that it is even less than his dog's, and asks why he is so weak. Say slow. He says that he told him that in his world there are no martial arts and internal energy. The old man tells him to first take the lotus position, and we see that he is still holding his head with his palm, like a basketball. He says that he will feel pain similar to death and will not be able to move. Sayawun asks what he should do, because if he does not make it in time, he will die. When he begins to transfer his ki, Sayawun says that all sensations sharpened. The wind on the skin is like sharp blades, even breathing is painful. They spiked him with fentanyl. He even hears ants crawling on the grass. Tumor. Then he feels a very sharp pain. When this begins, rising through his dantian to the upper one, he shouted, and an energy beam came out of his mouth and eyes, and he thinks that this is how he will die, and begins to sweat nervously. He immediately suppresses the vomiting for a second, and before releasing it all, the old man says that seeing how he endured it shows that his body is fine, and he has innate talents. As soon as he adjusts the flow of his ki, his body will feel different than before. Sayawun asks what he needs to do, and the old man says that he said earlier that he wants to become strong as soon as possible. Sayawun says yes, and the old man replies that he slightly moved his soul and created a gate of inspiration in that space. People are born to absorb the ki of the world only through breathing, but now he has another gate that helps absorb special energy. Not only by breathing, Sayawun asks what has changed, and the old man says that people consist of mind, body, and soul, which are held together by the ki of life. He asks to guess what happens to that ki of life when someone dies. Sayawun says the ki should disappear, and the old man replies that it is not so. We have a simple, interesting example from life, a drop of water on a leaf, and when it begins to fall from it, the old man explains that it does not disappear but disperses. When water touches the earth, it spreads out. The old man says that the scattered life ki is absorbed by nature, and thus the circle of life continues. But there are people who consider this obvious logical cycle a waste, and even kill to take someone else's life ki. But those who followed this path are constantly unstable, and eventually the harmony of their yin and yang breaks down, causing them to lose martial arts or die. The mind technique he passed to him allows him to absorb scattered life keys like theirs to increase internal energy. Sayawun asks if he just doomed him to inevitable death, and the old man replies that he is a little different. Unlike others who rebuilt veins to make gates, he used the soul of Sayawun. He has no internal energy at all, like a blank sheet, so he adjusted the veins to harmoniously absorb the life ki. And now it is clear why he gave him the forbidden mind technique in Zhangyun. Saya-woon says that it is probably due to game settings, and the old man adds that he likes how quickly he grasps everything. He felt it yesterday. In places where people died, the life key remains. The biggest problem with this mental technique is that great success can only be achieved through killing. But here, there is no such problem. To survive, he has to eliminate others, and in 100 days he will reach a fairly high level. The old man says it's time for them to part ways, and it would be nice to see him again. Tell him that the wound tells him to wait. Too late, saying that since he helped him so much, he at least wants to know his name. The old man says his name is Zhang Daqian. Everyone calls him Deep Valley. He is kind, and the spirit technique he taught him is called White Combat Bodybuilding. Say that the wounded man leans over and says he will never forget this. The old man tells him to get used to breathing deeply, and if he continues to accumulate internal energy through his Dantean, he will gradually become stronger. Then he opens the map as he was taught and says that it is very convenient, and he will see him again when the opportunity arises. Say that the wound says yes. He says that he disappeared very quickly, as was to be expected from him, and if he knew how to use those same Quine Gong movement techniques, he could also move comfortably. He decides to return to the outskirts, as he had planned. He was instantly kidnapped to the center, but the way back took half a day. We see him in the bushes near the lit house. He says it is the same as last time. Either this is a house without people, or some noob who doesn't care. He does not know how to turn off the light but still goes in there. Goes deeper and looks around, checks the corners, then slowly searches the house. We see the light go out above, and he says he was right and it's time to gather some things. Nonsense. There is only trash here, so he came in vain, because it was just a small healing scroll and some idiot. Turkey. He yawns and says that he didn't sleep at all because yapped. He was with the elder all night and already has to go to sleep because he is very tired. Then a voice wakes him up because the man says that the house does not seem empty. Let's assume the wound can say that the guy is right outside now, and I can't believe he was so defenseless, and now he is waiting by the door. When it opens, the man enters and says that he can finally. Let's assume the wound pulls the trigger and fires a shot at the man. The man immediately cuts it with a sword and says, Kaya-woon can't believe he is fighting a martial arts master and says that it is annoying. He puts his hand into the subspace and pulls out throwing knives, using the Black Star technique. The man deflects one of them with his hand and calls him a coward for using a hidden weapon. Then Saya-woon approaches closely and grabs him by the side of the head. Then he pushes the weapon away from himself and says that he dreamed a pleasant dream until someone woke him up by raising the crossbow bolt into the air. The man begs him, says he will do anything and give him everything he needs, because he cannot die here, as he has suffered so much. But let's say the wound pierced him right in the forehead. A record appears in the murder log, and we learn that the man's name was Oh-rong and he died from an arrow, and Saya-woon says that he also refuses to die here. He says that this is what Dokian was talking about. Wrapping it around his hand, he says that this is exactly the key to life. Then he feels a sudden surge of warmth as his body He begins to overflow with power and says that this must be internal energy. Although he absorbed only the life key of one person, his body feels lighter and significantly stronger, and we see that his internal energy is now displayed as an indicator. He wonders if this is level 20. Now 20 because of the energy of that guy. He said Daki and gave him something incredible, and he shouldn't just collect the key to life by killing, he needs to look for other ways. He is wondering how many people are alive now. He says in surprise that he doesn't understand how this could have happened, because they are only on the 5th day. Then he looks at it in real time and says that someone just died, and we see that it was Sagwang who killed a man named Carl. Sagwang says he thought this guy was strong because he approached him alone, but now his hands are dirty for no reason. He says he has already killed many, and doesn't know when this will all end. He opens the player counter and sees that 23 players remain. He left, and he also notices the name Sia-woon, saying he had seen the name of this bastard before. Sia-woon says that Sagwang has the most kills, so he should avoid him at all costs. He could barely defeat a weak opponent, and he is still very far from Sagwang's level. He says he needs to finish farming before the zone shrinks. From the chest he just got, the only useful thing is the refined Troll's potion. The rest is junk, and if he had some elixir or something valuable, he wouldn't have died so easily. After this, he decided to hide and hold out until there were fewer players. A week later, we see a werewolf walking through the forest. He turns back and growls at him. Before the crossbow shot killed him, Steven says he realized how lucky he was at the start of the game. He couldn't loot much because he mostly hid, and the equipment he had was broken, but at least he stayed in the forest near the borders, so he didn't encounter many enemies. But he was really tired of dried meat, because now it was the 12th day. He approaches the edge of the storm and reaches out his hand from it. He thought he wouldn't even be able to move there, and for a whole week the kill log recorded only Sagwang's kills. and it seems that everyone else is hiding and not taking risks. He noticed a large cloud of dust rising in the center of the zone, and says that it looks like a fight is happening there. Saguang, gasping, asks who they even are, and they tell him that everyone gathered with one goal: to eliminate him. And the way for him to win is to die quietly. Saguang asks if they really all united just to destroy Wana. One boy. He thinks he is grateful that they spared him the trouble of searching them all one by one, because they are ready to kill. Regarding him, he is confident that they are also ready to suffer the same fate, and he will make them. Realizes its meaning. He grabs one of the heads of that boy, squeezes him, squeezes that guy like a pimple and says he got rid of one, smears his face with blood. He did so, and then says that now he will get another one. As we see, he not only killed one boy but also instantly dealt with the whole group, killing 3 more. And the murder magazine showed this well. Saguang will almost certainly win the game unless something unexpected happens. The number of players kept falling again and again, and Sayawun says it's crazy. 9 murders at once seems absurd, and he suggests that it might be a fraud. Of course, it's a joke, but Saguang says those guys were nothing special. The stench of blood is disgusting. They must die without resistance, and he doesn't understand why they are screaming when he is about to leave. He is leaving, says he needs to find a place to wash. He says this is Elizabeth's team, and this is the escrow. He even swears by his name that he will avenge Elizabeth. He left, and says that if he holds on a little longer, he will be in the top 10. But having seen that chaos earlier, if he wants to survive against a raid boss like Saguang, he needs to get really good items. By tomorrow morning, this estate will most likely be out of the safe zone. He says this is probably the last place where you can farm properly. Looking around, he touches one of the knight statues. It says he needs 110 strength. He says he lacks strength and it will only weigh him down. Since he only has 30, he says this is very unlucky. He says there will definitely be something else, and notices something that catches his attention. This is an elixir that increases his internal energy, lasts for 3 hours, and asks if he wants to use it now. Sayavun says that if he uses it, he is not sure if he can really gain internal energy without absorbing the life key, and this estate seems to him a storage for valuable things. Then he picks up a martial art called Invincible Fist, and says he can't believe he even found a manual here. As with the skill Circle Stone, he will need to sit somewhere for about 3 hours to absorb the elixir. When he takes a step, he notices the sound is different and wonders what it is. When he looks more closely, he sees a seller who says there is probably something inside. He is still fleeing from the fire, so he manages to get into. He saw in the waiting hall, and it was Escrow. Escrow says that his survival after the explosion was not just luck because he killed all those people and survived. We see that he is talking to none other than Saguang, who asks what he is even talking about. And if he just stays silent, he will be nobody. But if he has time to talk nonsense, it's better to just fight than waste time. Escrow says that he wants to see how long he can continue working. He has such a mouth, and Saguang says he can say the same to him. Say that the wound cannot believe that Saguang, who caused the massacre, is just a child. Escrow raises his staff into the air and says that he is a master of spells and possesses his own style of lightning. It hits right where Saguang is standing. Saguang retreats. Avoiding the attack, Escrow says he wants to see how long he can keep dodging like this, and that he should face him one-on-one, just as he did against Elizabeth. Saguang dodges another attack and says that this is not just talk, because he hasn't even seen such things in Zhongyuan, and some of his skills really give him goosebumps. He prepares a spiritual bomb and says that this will destroy him. He throws it and it breaks into several lightning strikes, which he calls a lightning storm. Saguang realizes that this will end badly, and begins to dodge and maneuver between attacks, slowly closing the distance between him and Escrow. He then jumps off the ground and avoids the last storm blast. The key, and Escrow says that this is not enough to break his barrier, and he swings the stick forward, cutting Saguang in half. And Escrow says that he really did not expect this. Sayawun assumes that this is also because of Escrow's magic, and says that this is madness. Because besides almost killing Saguang, he can change the weather and is very strong. Escrow says that he cannot find Saguang, and it seems that he ran very far away. He retreats and starts shouting Saguang's name, saying that he swears to catch and kill him. Somewhere in the forest, Saguang is suffocating from gas. He said that maybe this time he defeated him, but next time he will not let him get away unscathed, and will write his death himself. For now, he needs to rest and recover. Sayawun says that Escrow 1 looked around for Saguang, who eventually came down and disappeared because he was nowhere to be seen, and thanks to Escrow 1's cloak, he was not seen and survived. Sayawun says that after their battle, they probably will not return here for some time, and he wonders if there is something important there, or a dungeon with hidden treasure. He opens it and says that it seems to lead quite far. He says that for now he wants to go inside. It seems no one has been here yet. When he starts to descend, he says it was a good idea to take a lantern from the house he searched yesterday. He looks around, sees a pile of food, and says it turned out to be a food vendor. There are very few such places for cultivation, and he can't believe it all turned out to be a complete failure. His stomach grumbled, and he says, honestly, that he used to complain about always eating only dried meat. After an hour, he regains consciousness and says it was very good. If he had even a little white rice, it would be perfect. But it's not bad as it is, so it's worth starting to take the elixir. He also says he has a martial arts manual, and we learn that the invincible fist was created. It was created by a man named Manpeza, who developed it in his later years and, having life experience in martial arts, put his heart and soul into creating the invincible style. But with a record of 1,429 fights and 1,429 losses, he became an object of ridicule, and the art was lost due to lack of students. Sayawun says that he actually learned some nonsense, and that's probably better than learning nothing. He decides not to think about it and first just drinks the elixir. He hesitated a little because of the pain from activating the ringstone, but thinking about becoming stronger, he still absorbed it without further ado. While his dantain is filled with internal energy, the amount he absorbed earlier is incomparable. He says he suddenly sweats heavily. His movements have become slow, and he really won't be able to move for 3 hours. After 3 hours, he wonders if it has finally ended, knowing that even sitting still for 3 hours is tiring. He hid in the forest for a whole week and is proud that during the clash between those two giants, he survived unnoticed. He decides to get a good sleep. Saying that it is definitely near the storm, he opens the player counter. Let's say the wound asks how. He says he definitely hasn't tried some ridiculous training method just because there is no risk here, and if not for that, he doesn't know why to do it at all. He is glad to have made the top 10, but such a path leaves a bitter aftertaste. The zone begins to narrow around him, and he says it's time to move. He won't die from entering the restricted zone, since he has come this far, so he needs to quickly move away from it. And when he starts to run, he says he won't let himself be caught in this zone. He wants to continue the strategy that has kept him safe all this time. And for a person without skills, this is the best way to rise higher. Turns around and sees a fireball flying at him and exploding right where he stands. He barely escaped unharmed and wondered where it came from. On cue, we see him from the place where the attack came from, and it turns out that thing destroyed. Escrow says he sent someone through his detection spell, so he thought it was Sagwang, but it's a new face. Sayavan says he got carried away using internal energy to move quickly, and ended up crashing right into this guy, who turned out to be a real fool. Escrow asks him if he knows where Sagwang is, and tells him that if he doesn't listen, he'll have to kill him right here. Escrow says he will let him go alive only if he says where Sagwang is. If he doesn't know, he will be killed, and has no other choice, because letting him go would be a problem. Suppose the wound says they literally just met and doubts how he could know all these things. He steps in to make a surprise attack because Escrow says he just looked like he was from the same edge, and if he doesn't know him, then he will have to die. Sagwang touches his barrier, and when Sagwang says he has fully recovered but knows he probably lacks mana, Sayawun wonders where he came from, because he didn't feel him at all. Sagwang pulls his fist back and says he will finish it with this, and he really manages to break through the barrier. And Escrow, and Sagwang asks if he has ever heard of enhanced energy. Hand energy is a martial art of that category, and it is so rare that almost no one possesses it. He mastered it and never thought he would have to use it in this world, and you are the first to whom he showed it, so consider yourself honored. He calls him Archmage, and when we see his hand in Escrow's throat, he pulls it out, splattering blood everywhere. Sagwang says he now knows he no longer has to recite those annoying spells, and for a person like him, getting into the top 5 was inevitable, so sooner or later they will meet, and meeting him will become his greatest regret. Sayawun says that maybe he is lucky that Sagwang came here, and while they were distracted, he will quickly leave here. Sagwang says he will kill him now, and Siwun is surprised by what he sees when Sagwang pushes his entire hand through this. He was stabbed in the chest again and again with a homemade knife, like in prison. Since Escrow concerns, Sayavan says he saw the supposedly invincible Archmage dying, to be completely destroyed. The thought was not fear of Sagwan. If anyone felt sympathy for us, it was only a thought that preceded everything else. He thought about how strong he would become if he absorbed their life key, and just the thought made him sweat. Sagwang asks where his boldness from yesterday went, and if he has any last words before death, but says he forgot he cannot speak. Sagwang begins to hear his words in his head because the Elizabeth he killed was his favorite student, and he asks how he is speaking to him now. And Escrow says that when she was expelled from the academy, and Cranesec did not recognize her, simply, since she was a woman, he deeply regretted not stopping her then. Sagwang says he does not remember meeting a woman, and she probably just looked like a man. Escrow laughs, but it sounds more like blood, and he says that now he can finally shut that dirty mouth. Let's say, the wound says that this guy summoned an entire meteor. When it starts to fly towards the two of them, Sagwangan, he asks how he managed to cast the spell when he cannot speak, and Escrow tells him that it is using their mana and life essence as payment. This is called Armageddon. Sagwang begins to retreat, fleeing from it, calling him crazy and saying that the wound is also like that. Earlier, Escrow says that it was nice to see Elizabeth then, and he would like to see her again. And Armageddon strikes the ground, causing a giant explosion saying that if someone cast this spell, it could only be one person. Suppose the wound survived but is very injured. He says he should have run away instead of waiting, and all because he was greedy for the key of life. He says he cannot die so senselessly, and so he farmed a bunch of healing scrolls just at a time like this, when he begins to tear them open. He sighs and says he barely got out, and if not for that elixir, he would never have been able to escape. And it still hurts very much, even after he healed, and one scroll was definitely not enough. When he tears open another handful, he says he can finally catch his breath a little. It turned out he spent all the accumulated scrolls and says that more need to be obtained. Seeing that Escrow is finally dead, he says it's a pity he couldn't witness it. The sphere is the key to life, but nothing can be done about it. And he wonders why Sagwan does not appear in the death log, and whether he is still alive. On cue, a faint Sagwang sound is heard asking for help. He says he definitely heard the sound from here and when. Sagwang turned into a lump and said that if he manages to activate this scroll, he will not die in such a bad situation. Suppose the wound says that avoiding the meteor aimed at him would be difficult, and if all his limbs are unusable, he cannot use the healing scroll. Sagwang asks him to tear it for him, and Sayavun says he knows he is Sagwang. Then Sayavun says he always wondered what equipment he had to become so strong every time his name appeared on the kill list. He was sure he would definitely win this game, so it's funny to see him in such a state. Sagwang says that if he helps even this time, he will make him the winner, and it's easy because he won't be able to win alone by killing him. If he can get Sagwang's items and the key to life, he will become the lube of this game. He raises the blade up and Sagwang screams. No, even if he kills him, he doesn't know how many strong players are there. He doesn't even have that many items, and he hasn't learned martial arts here. Seowun says that at least he must know the name of the person who is killing him, and that is Jin Seowun. Sagwang says that this time he might die. Shout his name before Seowun stabs him right in the head with a knife. Name the size of the wound. Ask why he looks like a child, because it makes him feel guilty. Something starts to burst out of him so fast that it envelops his entire body. He says that Sagwang is practically a human elixir, because he is filled with a huge surge of internal energy. More, because several people are still alive and they see that Seowun really managed to kill Sageway. That now, with the tiger dead, the foxes will run wild. Let's say, the wound says that with such energy he could handle anyone. Prey, saying that if he had that much internal energy from the start, he would have to be a very crazy person. And he didn't farm because of this, and if he doesn't find anything good, his mood will spoil. Everything as he wanted. He receives the Kaiser's ring, which greatly increases dexterity, the Drimminger ring for strength, the Halen ring for endurance, the Tokar ring for magic resistance, and he receives 2 of those. Seowun says that this scoundrel only farmed rare items, and I think he pretended all along as if he had no extra equipment. Now everything is crazy, and now he can definitely win. Besides the rings, there were various books on martial arts, but he could not study them immediately because they required prior skills. Then he feels something and says to wait a minute. It's because he seemed to sense someone's presence. The bullet turns back and hits him in the back. Flames begin to envelop him. The guy says that one should not relax just because he is farming. Since he stumbled upon this ambush, it seems he was just lucky to kill Sagwang. Let's say, the wounded man, who of course was not scared by the attack, asks who he is, and the guys are just confused why his fire spell did not work. Seowun tells him that it just passed by because he has 90 magic resistance. He goes toward the guy, who tells him to step back, asking what he intends to do, because if he takes another step, he will hit him with a stronger spell. Then the boy begins to aim one straight ahead of himself. The man directs the explosion straight into Seowun's chest, and we see again how it begins to spread around. He then clenches his fist and pulls his hand back. He demonstrates the first technique, called Piercing Fist, and strikes the man in the stomach, breaks his stick, and sends a shockwave down his back. Seowun says he was told that this martial art always lost, so he expected nothing. But it seems that his strength depends on how much inner energy you have. Love. The boy begins to cough and turns around. He just dies on the spot. Now there are 7 left, and this boy was named Zigar. Sayawun says that now that his resistance to magic has increased, ordinary magic will no longer harm him. Apparently, after Saguang's death, all those who were hiding were killed. When he begins to rush very fast throughout the forest, he says he considers himself at the level to at least imitate Dakian's movements, and adds that thanks to him he can really win. He hears someone shouting for him to stop hiding and come out to meet them. Sayawun does not believe that this guy is making so much noise in the middle of the night, and the other says that Zihark was quite a good mage, and if he is not a coward, then let them just fight like men. He says that he is just a scared kid, asks if he is so afraid of him, and we find out that his name is Stanko. He barely deflects her. It is clear that it was an arrow shot with great force. Stanko says that the attempt to frame him was girlish, and they need to fight like men. Bro repeats the line's options. Let's imagine that the wound says it was an arrow, and asks who inflicted it. When I think about the arrow, one person immediately comes to mind. Zurochana. Zurochana asks if he knows who he is, and Stanko says that it is obvious, because he is the legendary mercenary nicknamed the Divine Archer, well known in the guild. After all, he also strives to win this, and they should unite and eliminate. Return to Stanko. Stanko says he did the right thing by introducing himself, and adds that he works in the guild. Quite famous, and he will not regret it. Zurochana says all right. Stanko says that although his reputation is very big, it seems his head is empty. Zurochana begins to count and says that he might have made a mistake with the time, as Stanko tells him that the archer must make a mistake and shorten the distance himself. He looks up and sees Stanko pulling the sword back, telling him to die and give up his belongings. When he starts swinging down with full force, he gets a club. The arrow pierces his skull and flies into the ground. It turns out that Zurochana shot an arrow into the air, and that is what he was counting. He says he would never cooperate with a bug like him, because even a dog passing by would pee on him. He needs to find out where that scoundrel Sayawun is, and he has already lost a lot of time. Sayawun approaches the treasure chest and says that when only 6 remain, the key to each life is valuable. Right there where he is, as if looking him in the eyes, he uses detection magic and says that maybe he is not just a skilled archer, but has some ability he does not know about. He relaxed because he was thinking about life, the key, but instead Zurochana simply says that he was a vile scoundrel. He is not even worth taking when he leaves, and in fact he did not notice Sayawun. Secondly, and Sayawun says that he feels like the zone is shrinking faster. Only 6 survivors remain, 87 days left, and this probably just adjusts to the number of people left. He wakes up and sees that he is actually in the field. He says that if he fights, if there is someone like that here, he will immediately attract the attention of everyone nearby, but he manages to jump aside and land away from them. He says that the magic was precisely aimed at the place where he stood. He wonders how they did it, but when he raises his eyes, he sees a bunch of attacks swirling in the sky and says, "Damn it!" When they fly up, he realizes that he cannot dodge. He says that it has come to this, and that he is going to believe in his inner energy. Chapter. He applies the invincible fist, once again, striking forward in the direction of the attack and completely breaks through it, destroying every projectile flying towards him, saying that now he needs to find out the location of his enemy. He does it easily, says he did not expect to find him so quickly, and the other asks who he is. He spent all his mana in that attack, and it's strange that he blocked everything. The guy wonders when that happened, because he felt nothing, and the killer says he needed to leave enough mana for magic detection or for a barrier. Being a killer and erasing his tracks is his bread and butter, and he has to rest in urine. The man begins to disappear, and only 5 survivors remain. He asks if he knows him, and the killer replies that of course, he killed the people's enemy number 1, Sagvanga, so he couldn't not know him, and the rest of the people are clearly desperately trying to track him down. He should not resist, just quietly step aside. He always hit the target he noticed. He runs inside and Sayawun does too, because they are about to have a serious fight. And cuts, we see how after their clash blood flies through the air. Sayawun really has many small cuts all over his arm. The killer says he thought they would cut him there, but he turned out to be stronger than expected. Sayawun says that if he hadn't covered himself with internal energy, his arm would have been cut off, and that this scoundrel is strong. The killer insists again, saying his death is inevitable because he has never been wrong when killing in the dark. Sayawun says that so far he has only fought with mages. He says that now he will kill him as he begins to disappear. He appears behind him and, let's say, slashes the wound, but that also turned out to be just an illusion. Sayawun tells him that his skill in moving unnoticed is very impressive. He grabs him by both wrists and says that at his level, he can track movements just by feeling the energy. A strange pose. The killer calls him a coward for attacking from behind, although that is actually his trademark. Sayawun says that he was the one who tried to kill him, and that it is his fault that he was caught. Then he squeezes the killer's wrists, and he screams in pain. The killer says that he won't be able to defeat everyone alone and suggests at least teaming up, but the wounded one refuses. When he drops his hands and kicks his leg up, this guy's spine breaks in half. A brutal death. Bro raised backstabs to a new level. Now there are 4 left. We find out his name was Demirin. Sayavun absorbed both of their life keys and took the healing scrolls that fell because, due to the noise they made, he wanted to farm quickly and get out to avoid becoming a target for a third party. He then takes a book from Demirin's belongings and says that it doesn't suit him at all. It was a manual about shadow clones, which allowed creating clones that could fight, and their number depended on internal energy. Sayavun says that fortunately he didn't know how to use internal energy, and if he had learned and skillfully used it, it would have been hard to kill him. The other one had a grimoire called Eyes of Carmen. It is a highest level detection spell that pierces any concealment, but its magic circle is too low to learn it. Sayavun said that probably that's how he saw through his cloak of invisibility, and from behind comes an attack that misses him and slices his cheek. Sayavun looks at the arrow on the floor. That was that guy just now. Now magic starts to appear rapidly. Sayavun says he has never seen anything like this before and does not know who it is. In any case, he cannot run, so he will focus on his Use your inner energy and strike once more with the invincible fist to deal with this, sending a shockwave upward through the formed glacier. Sayavun says that since 2 attacks came simultaneously, it must be a double team. Then a man appears behind him and says that he is strong enough. Wow, that's Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist. It turns out these are the last 4. This is the King of Crusans, named Shenturk, the right hand of the Demon King, whom we saw when he argued with Escrow, whose name is Hieron, and finally the Divine Archer, whom we have already met, Zorachan. And also the ordinary guy Seowun, and he does not know what to do now. Siwun is told that his luck has run out here. Siwun says that just when he was so close to victory, he ran into the timers. The best way to break up a team is to create a situation where they betray each other. He needs to find out what relationships they have, but he obviously has never seen them before. Chiron tells Shenturk that he is glad to see him here. Shenturk asks why the Black Mage is talking to the king. Chiron laughs and tells him to explain. They politely excuse themselves, but here the status is less important than what is more advantageous to unite for better rewards. And Sayawun thinks they might not have done this intentionally. But of course, Shenturk says that first they need to get rid of Sayawun's annoying presence, and Chiron adds that for him it is very easy. A golden aura begins to shine and blinds Sivan. He sees a miniature sun above them. Chiron says that now he has nowhere to hide, and Shenturk adds that he is smarter than they previously thought. Sayawun says he did not think there was such a way, and since the cloak hides only in darkness, he did not even consider this loophole. Chiron says he wanted to thank Saguang because he got rid of that irritating escrow for him. He cannot say this to him directly, but this is the law of this land. Now it is his turn to die in the name of the Demon King. Then with his left hand he begins to summon a purple whirlwind, calling it the Blade of Chaos. Most mages are weak at close range, so if he shortens the distance, they will be cramped, and it will be difficult for them to cast spells, so he needs to force close combat in any case. When he rushes forward, Chiron calls him an ignoramus and says he should just die as he is. The attacks fly out and say that the wounded one does not even try to dodge. He runs straight through them, saying that he must wrap his body with as much internal energy as possible to reduce damage. His cloak is tearing so badly that its abilities cannot be used until it is repaired. Sayawun says that the internal energy that concealed his body is dissipating, and now his cloak has also disappeared. Chiron says that this blow will tear him to pieces and not a trace will remain. Then Sayawun starts using the invincible fist again. Flying out of the bloody blade of chaos, he clenches his fist and rushes forward. Bro was smeared with his own blood. Chiron calls American and says he has no chance to win, so he should surrender. When he casts another spell called Dead Man's Chaos, they begin to tear out of the ground and fly straight towards Sivan. Sayawun says that compared to all the mages he has fought before, this guy is on another level. He folds his hands and strikes that shadow clone, and they begin to take hits instead of him. Chiron says he thought he could deliver a few hits, but he can even use shadow clone magic, and that really surprises. Sayawun says this is his victory. Chiron starts stuttering, pronouncing the word barrier. The ability called Piercing Aura passed right through Chiron's chest and hit Sayawun. Well, got a collateral. Chiron turns around and says that the one called King should not behave so cowardly. Shenturk tells him there is no honor greater than victory, and he never said he would cooperate with him, although he thanks him for getting rid of the trash, and when the message appears, say, he killed Chiron. Shenturk says now only the 2 of them remain. He tells Zurachani that he was a real thorn in their army's side, And what irony that in the end he helped him just like that. That it is still too early for him to say this, and Shenturk asks what he is talking about. As we see, Sayawun still, he is alive, runs up with an attack and hits him right in the face, causing Bro to start spinning. He hits him so hard that the armor flies off, and he flies straight into the rock near Zurachana. Finally got into the second place. Zurachana says he thought he died from Shenturk's sword, but it was probably a shadow clone. Sayawun tells him to stop babbling and fighting. Zurachana says he can't believe everyone is so impatient. This shows that he is primarily dealing with matters with Shenturk. Since Shenturk is still alive, he says both are driving him crazy, and he felt it and can't believe he destroyed his armor made by the master blacksmith of his empire, and it's really impressive. Sayawun says he also babbles too much and wonders whether they will attack him one by one, or rush at him together. Shenturk says he will regret making him give all his strength. When he starts to leave an afterimage, say the word. Shenturk instantly closes the distance and pierces his hand with a rapier. Shenturk says no one can beat his speed because he hit his ligaments, so that hand will no longer work, and his technique apparently required both hands. Sayawun says he was confused because this guy is not a power character, and he can't lose like that. This is because he worked so hard to get here, and it's already too late to die here, so he is going to trust the energy within himself. When he swings down, with his bare hand he breaks Shenturk's rapier. He raises his hand and uses the art of the Black Star, throws it back towards Shenturk and cuts his cheek. Shenturk asks how he dared to wound his face, and then, suppose the wound tears a healing scroll, instantly restoring his wounds. Shenturk says he does not believe he will have to fight to the end. The end, when he begins to reform his blade with aura. He says he acknowledges him because he made him use the aura blade. Sayawun says that now that his hands have healed, he can fight back. When he folds his hands, he creates a shadow clone and simultaneously expends all his internal energy, creating an army of his copies. Shenturk says that he really uses annoying tricks, but the winner is always him. Sayawun says that now he has become serious, so he should prepare. Zurachana observes and asks if any of them can die, because they need to finish this with the help of quads. Quickly, and he begins to yawn, because officially now there are only 3 of them. Sayawun tells him that he is about to start, and Shenturk says that he told him to stop talking, but he himself continues to do so. We learn that the maximum duration of his aura blades is 2 minutes, so he needs to manage within this time. However, Sayawun's internal energy is also almost exhausted. He also needs to finish this quickly, so they both hurry. They both start running one after another. We see how Sayawun and his clones surround Shenturk, and when Shenturk makes a lunge towards his head, he dodges. Sayawun pats him on the back, and Shenturk waves, calling him a vile scoundrel, and cuts the shadow clone in half. Shenturk says he doesn't feel his hits connecting, so it must have been a clone. If so, he will chop them all down, not worrying about finding the real one. While he is doing this, he is hit right in the face. He begins to stagger. He wonders if this is... Sayawun asks how it feels when a nasty guy hits you, so that he knows he better stop looking for the real body. The clones he creates can all attack and are no worse than the original, so he won't be able to tell them apart. In unison, 2 of his clones attack together, using the relentless fist that avoided her rear pedals. Now he is in the air, where, realizing that he needs to go on the offensive, he wants to be used more, like his teammate. I release a piercing aura and start swinging forward, quickly hitting the clones. Zurachana, looking down from above, says that he did not expect. Genturg tells him to stop standing there and come help. If he helps him win, Genturg will give him anything he wants when they return. Zurachana tells him to watch the opponent. Again, Shenturk uses his piercing aura, so the injury bypasses him. This time with a palm strike, he hits his sword as he deflects the attack, and say that the wound says he did not expect it to be blocked. Shenturk shouts that now he has caught him. Then he pierces straight through, and you can see blood splashing. He gradually disappears, because that was also just a clone. Shenturk says that this nonsense is already becoming absurd. It is humiliating. He begins laughing. He says that he no longer cares about victory, and will just tear him to pieces with all his strength. Zurachana says, "Here comes the king of madness," and Shenturk tells him to dodge it if he can. When he starts releasing Hella Aura, he instantly closes the distance, kills 2 clones, and pierces another. When they all start disappearing, he says that only remains. When Sivan and his clones start running forward, he uses his peer-to-peer connection, and another Siwoon hits him right in the chest, piercing through. Let's say the wound says that his attack hit this time. Shenturk says that since there is no sensitivity in his hand, he must just become a clone too, and now only the original will remain. Shenturk says he will finish this with 1 strike, and they start running towards each other to finish everything. Suppose this time Wound did not dodge Shenturk's stab, but instead kicked him on the hand. Shenturk says that he is quite skilled in hand-to-hand combat. He used the last charge of his aura blade to create the shape of lightning. Turk begins to stab, say, a wound in the leg, and it starts to cause shock. Sayawun falls back to the ground, and Shenturp quickly closes the distance. Sayawun tries to persuade him to wait, because only Zurachana benefits from this. He says he barely made it while his skill was active. It did not feel like a real body. As we see, Sayawun appears immediately. Sayawun says that if he had not exhausted him with his clones, he would have lost. Now only 2 survivors remain, and he has the prey of Shenturk and the key of life, which he can absorb. Zorachana says he did not expect him to defeat Shenturk, and he has to thank him because he was difficult to deal with. Ultimately, because of this obsessive desire to compete, even the king had to give all his strength to defeat someone like him. He used everything in the fight against him, so he will die by his hands. For his brave fight, he will grant him the honor that when he releases the arrow and flies through the air. Sayavun says that it was a crazy amount of life keys, and although it does not compare to what he got in Sagwangu, this will be enough. Huge, because he can definitely defeat Zorachana. Even more, jumping from the foot of the cliff to Zurachana. Zurachana says that he uses an annoying clone to. Chana also descends, and says that this time he must make sure he can escape. Say that the wound screams no before Zurachana shoots and Sayavun asks how he figured out which one was real. Maybe saying that it is nothing strange, he just guessed. Siawun asks if he is serious, and Zurachana says that he did well and got this far, and he expresses respect for his persistence. Sayavun tells him to give that respect to the dogs, and time begins to fade, say that it hurts. Disappears, because now there is a chest, and we see that the survival of Cloyd has ended. Say the size of the wound, saying that he did all the work, and someone else got the prize. But he eventually took advantage of Sagwang when he was defenseless, and it congratulates him on reaching the top 2, since he earned the right to participate in the next game. Sayawun confirms the second game. The game informs him that considering the kill bonuses, he earned 140 coins. Siwun wonders why these coins, and calls out all the items he received. We see that every item he received has a real price, and now he can buy them. This is a very cool system. The Shadow Clone costs 130, and he wonders why it is so expensive, because it takes almost all his coins. He is also told that the top 5 survivors will get a chance to spin the roulette and win a random item. Sayawun says that of course they love their gacha games, and since he goes second, he has 2 attempts. Sayawun says it is good if he gets either the invisibility cloak or the Shadow Clone. He has to save a lot of coins, and this could be a big win. He flies through the Shadow Clone, and when the clone is about to do it again, he is ready. And instead he gets the escrow necklace. He says that he took one of the cheapest, and was only hinting to get and he starts asking any god there to help him with it. When it passes through the subspace ring, he wonders if he made a mistake again, and we see how the black star continues. And he thinks that it ended before it hit the Shadow Clone, because there is plot armor, saying that this is the most expensive he could buy, and it is almost twice the cost of his coins. Then he hands over the items and says that he can use his coins to buy additional items. As soon as this is done, he will be automatically transferred. He says it's time to start shopping. Thanks to pulling out the Shadow Clone, he managed to save a bunch of coins, but there were too many offers, so he couldn't decide for a long time, and it was unbearable for him to wait. So he made a few compromises and finished shopping. His voice praised him and said they wish him luck in the next game. When Sayawun sees a bright light in front of him, he puts it on his finger and says that this is really not a dream. Then he picks up the bag from the floor and says that his first game is over, and outside he can look almost the same. At least now he doesn't need to study. He looks at the ring and says that he was already told there will be another one. In the game, he has 30 coins left, so he needs to hurry to get there. This time he almost won and took second place, but in the next game he will definitely take first. Of course, his parents bought him that studio near the school so he could return to classes. At first, he was supposed to stay here, study, and prepare to return to school. But now he is completely focused on becoming stronger thanks to the things he brought from the game. He begins to feel inner energy, says it is empty, thinks that maybe he used it all in the final battle. And since he can't kill anyone here, he will try to cultivate like Daki and teach him the same. Cover as much as possible. Dakian said that it is normal to accumulate inner energy through cultivation, and when he forms an energy core and focuses on it, it should happen naturally. It may not be as fast as absorbing life force by killing others, but if cultivation becomes a habit, he can achieve mastery without noticing it. Sayawun asks if he can become as strong if he trains, and Dakyun laughs. Maps said that since yesterday he noticed he has become quite brave, and Dakyun says an idiom meaning not to overdo it. Otherwise you will suffer for it, but it may turn out to be an overkill. because he may turn out to be a hidden talent and won't find out until he tries. He declares and says that he can barely gather anything. Come on, it's too different from the game. At this pace, it will take him years to fill it. He shouldn't waste any more time. Better just to put in order the things he brought. He pulls out several martial arts manuals, says he wishes for better ones, and then he wonders if he should train it gradually, just like internal energy. He won't become strong anytime soon. The manual asks if he wants to learn it, and he is embarrassed. He says it's weaker than when he was full of internal energy, but it's still the same. He has it, and we see the escrow necklace. He says he forgot about it, and they say it is made of pure gold. He bites it, saying that it is. It gives the impression that it should cost at least 10 million won. Something similar costs only 1 coin, and if he brings just 10 of these in the next game, he will immediately earn 100 million. Even if it costs nothing in the game, here it has a completely different value. He obtains purified troll blood. They said this item was supposed to guarantee a year of healthy life to whoever drinks it, and it was returned because of the effects. It sounded like an attempt, and if he could sell it to some rich terminally ill patient, he could demand any price. The fact that the survival of the Cloyd would turn out to be a great opportunity for him. He says, if you think about it, in the game he only had dried meat, and he didn't even feel hungry during cultivation. It's time for him to eat real food. He goes to an establishment called Grandma's Diner and takes. This is a set of dishes he once considered a luxury. When he chewed that dried meat, what he wanted most was exactly this dish. He says so much time has passed since he ate plain white rice that the dried meat almost killed him. The grandmother owner, as I suppose, asked what was wrong with him, because he came here yesterday too, and if he cries, it will spoil the appetite, because a man should not whine. He says it was very tasty, and as always, thanks her, and she asks him to stop the nonsense, eat everything on the plate, and ask for seconds if it's not enough. Sayawoon says that this confirms that time in the game is not the same as in real life. Then he thanks her for the food. She tells him to stop whining and come again. He asks when the next one will start because he needs to get there. Gather more internal energy by that time, as well as another thing he brought back. He takes out the Ring of Power, puts it on, and says he wonders if it will work the same as in the game. He squats, then pushes off the street, flies over the houses, and says that this is. He falls back, lands, and says he hopes no one saw that. If this is reported and spread on the internet, it will be a big problem for him. He says if this is implemented as precisely as in the game, he will have to accumulate more internal energy before using it, but it will cause him a lot of trouble. The most expensive item he bought in the game. Absorbing this item did not allow me to play this game. He had to move for 3 hours, and it seemed like he was burning inside. His eyes begin to glow brightly. The elixir falls to the floor, and he wastes part of it. He returned to his usual state but feels unwell. Smoke is visible near his room. People said that their wall was heating up. They knocked on his door, but the handle was too hot to touch. If it was that hot, they should have called the firefighters, not the police. The old lady says it was hot, but there was no fire. The police advise not to touch and suggest that the boiler is set too high. She says it is too hot for that. The policeman sighs, says all right, and approaches to touch the door. It burns a lot. She says she told him that. He asks if there is someone inside because they received a message and he needs to open the door. And if he is inside, to respond because they are here to help. The door opens, and the wound seems to ask who it is. They say they received a message about a possible fire. Let's say the wound, from which sweat is dripping, seems to say that he is a bit hot, and that he turned up the boiler a bit. And if it was a fire, there should be firefighters here instead of the police. The police say that with a complaint they still have to come out and ask if he needs an ambulance. Sayawoon says it is just a mild cold and after resting he will feel better. They say all right. They are going to leave. Then the cops tell her not to call for such things, because it creates problems. She says she was shocked. He almost died. The energy of the elixir boiled like a flame, and if it weren't for his ability to control his body, he wouldn't have been able to hold it back. He somehow feels that this is not like in the game. Using these things in real life is a bit risky, but it's still worth it. When he raises his hand, he uses his invincible fist, namely, a palm strike that generated a gust of air throughout his room and instantly broke his chair. He says he needs to sell some things he brought back to at least buy a new chair. The next day he goes to the gym. Outside he says that to truly refine his invincible fist, he needs physical training. He came here, but it turned out to be too crowded during the day. He has to wait until after sunset, and then he notices something. There is a whole group of high school bullies here. Hopefully he won't start a fight with them. That would be awkward. When they walk by, one of the students is smoking. The old man tells him that smoking is not allowed here, and he shouldn't smoke because he is still young, and the student asks again what it is about. because even his parents say nothing about his smoking. The old man says that if his parents didn't do this, they failed in raising him. The hooligan asks who he is anyway, and say that the wound says he has a bad feeling about this. When his body is thrown back and flies over the table, it is impossible that he just killed the student like that. Sayavan says that no matter how rude he is, you can't just hit an old man like that. Some students turn back and call another, by the name Minchik, whom they came here to meet. Sayavun turns around. Earlier asked if he is looking for death. That guy starts looming over him, and Sayavun says that everything turned out to be more complicated than he wanted. We see the student covered in blood lying on the ground, and Minchik asks if he did it. Sayavun says that he was the first to cause the problem because he did not show respect to the elders, and he really tried to attack the old man. And if the high schoolers smoke like that in public, they need to be warned that they could end up in Sierra Leone. If he is his older brother, then he should raise him properly. Maybe he overdid it, but he had no choice because he couldn't allow him to hit the elder. Sayawun says that he will also teach him a lesson and pulls his fist back, hitting him with a piercing fist right in the stomach, sending the brother flies and starts spitting blood. Sayawun says he forgot to properly control the strength. He holds a butterfly knife and tells him to look at the new skin he bought. Sayawun says that the younger brother is just like the older one, and they are both uncontrollable. Minchuk runs in and swings from above, but Sayawun dodges to the side and says that the longer they fight, the stronger he feels it. Fighting such ordinary people is too easy for him. He sweeps from below and knocks Minchuk off his feet. If something goes wrong, he will seriously kill this guy. He decides to use only 50%, then strikes with his palm. But this strike, just the air pressure throws the guy into a tree. He definitely won't get out of here without internal bleeding. He crashes into something, falls to the ground, and the children record it on their phones. Sayavan says that this is not what he wanted to do, and he says that the acting is very dramatic and asks if he is an action movie actor or something like that. Then he approaches his younger brother, kicks him again, and tells the older brother to respect elders, quit smoking, and not carry knives because it is dangerous. He runs away, and several students call his younger brother Don Jun, but he does not respond and they think he is dead. Sayavun wonders what he was thinking then. He shows off in front of an ordinary person. If that person dies, his life will be over. Although he learned it easily thanks to what he brought from the game, he needs to practice well to control it perfectly when returning home. He picks up the receiver, and his mother asks if he has eaten. He says he did, and she says that he did not answer, so she was worried and called because she hoped he was not sick. She then asks how things are at the academy he enrolled in. Sayavun says that this can be handled, and he cannot tell her that instead of studying he is training in martial arts. He then asks how his father is doing, because he heard that he got a new job as a courier. She says that she wanted to call about this, and it turned out that he got into a car accident. Sayavun asks how serious it is and what happened. She says it happened when he was delivering packages, and a car ran a red light and hit him hard. They did not skimp on insurance, but the operation is expensive, and she is worried. She knows that she did not send much pocket money, so she feels awkward asking, but hopes that maybe he still has some money from what she talked about. He asks her how much the operation cost, and she tells him it is about 1 or 2 million. He tells her not to worry. He thinks he has a solution, so he asks if she is okay. She says yes, and apologizes for bothering him when he is already busy with studying. He says it is all right and that he will call her back. His parents moved all their lives from one rented accommodation to another. His father always worked harder than anyone he knew, but with age his income decreased. Bank. His job is easy to replace, so he often changed jobs. Let's say someone starts sobbing, saying that he was a typical child who lived off others in such a family, a hopeless burden without a future, and he hates it. But he no longer wants to remain that way. The woman says it looks like very skillful work, but it doesn't look like a local product. He says it has been in their family for 5 generations. She says the styling is definitely not done by modern methods, and he asks how much it costs. She says it may cost more than just for the gold, and asks if he wants to sell it here. And he says his father needs urgent surgery, and he knows that this is not something he should be selling in such a way. But his situation is very urgent. She says that probably means he doesn't have a certificate. He then leaves, and she wishes him a nice day. He reviews his finances on his phone and says that recently gold prices have risen significantly. Even after he sent part to his parents, he had enough left to get by for some time. Seeing how happy she was, he thought maybe he underestimated it, but it didn't matter. He needed to earn some money. He will get quick money, and he will have to think about better ways to sell the things he brings. He says he has to tell his mother that he sent her his money, so he calls her. She asks where he got so much money and if he took out a loan, or something like that, saying that she cannot spend this money knowing about it. He says that he doesn't even have a full-time permanent job, so he can't take out a loan. It's just money he saved from a side job in the army, and she says that both she and his father regret it very much. He tells her not to worry, and that he will visit the hospital soon. She thanks him. They say that it is clearly computer graphics or something similar, and it looks like it was filmed secretly. As soon as the spells intensify, Sayawoon immediately understands what is happening. He realized that this is a spell from Cloyd Survival, and he is not the only person in Korea who played that game. The video was eventually deleted, and they say this has been happening all day. At that time, says Sayawoon, he could not imagine what would have happened if someone else had gotten such an opportunity. At the same time, the shot shifts to a man talking on the phone. The man says that they will shut down the internet across the entire country. A little, if they have to, and he apologizes a lot, and they will take care of it immediately. He says he heard that the guy who posted the video is Korean, and asks what happened. His subordinate says that recently the number of survivors has sharply increased, and they are almost impossible to track. He throws it and hits him in the head, saying that if the number of survivors is increasing, then the number of agents should also increase. He needs to find and bring that attention seeker, the bastard. Holding his bleeding head, he says he will do so. The man tells them that if there is blood on his carpet, he will kill him. Another guy starts healing him with the survival magic of Cloyd, and he doubts whether they will catch up with them because they are so weak. If they really are going to move, there is no carpet in this room, and that guy was clearly smoking something strange. Let's say the wound says that after the summer heat, the night breeze has become cool. After the first game, he has been training at night for 2 months when there are no people. He has accumulated a lot of internal energy, and he is also more used to using it. The biggest problem he is facing now, both use part of the invincible fist called Spatial Strike. Saewoon says that this is the problem he was talking about. He can summon only one shadow clone. When he fought Shenturk, he could easily control 8 shadows as he wished. Perhaps in the last battle he spent too much internal energy, and now his Dantian looks pathetic in comparison. He got offended because of this. He better just go home and cultivate more. He got a little hungry after training and wonders what he put into his subspace. When he reaches out, we see a very bright light. He found himself in survival mode again during deployment. He says that some people look as confused as he did before. If he finally got into another game after 2 months, they say the tutorial will start now, and Sayawoon doesn't understand why it is needed right now. He notices someone sitting on a statue and saying something. It seems someone else from Korea is participating. Sayawoon says he is just trying to start a farm, and it's a bit cringy. Obviously, he has already played such games, and I hope he is not as strong a scoundrel as Sagwang. They say that since there are 200 players, the game is now starting. The map is called Contrast Valley. Rewards will be given from 20th place. All 200 participants can pass. Sayawoon is a bit irritated and says there is no risk of failure. He loses, but says he can play like a real psycho. After the briefing explained what he already knew, they announced something he did not expect. It turned out that this is a game for 2. This caught him by surprise. In training, he is advised to find someone he likes and register as a pair. The game will continue until only one team remains alive, and even if only one player survives until the end, both team members will receive a reward. If he does not form a team within 5 minutes, he will play alone. Sayawoon says he really thought there were more of them. More people than last time, probably because of that. It seems that everyone is meeting each other for the first time. So, they rely on people they consider capable of forming teams, and if your choice is wrong, your partner can become a burden. Let's say, Rana says that the high schooler did not look like a novice before, so he might be useful. But when he looks at the statue, the boy is no longer there, and Sayawoon wonders if he has already found himself a partner. He says that he just needs to find anyone. He goes to ask someone, but they are already together. I just keep running into this problem. He says that there is definitely someone here who has not yet found a pair, but now he cannot find this person among all the people. He says that since it happened this way, he has no choice. If he faces 1 or 2, he will just kill them all and win. On the first day, we see that the surroundings are completely different. He says that ruined villages are scattered around the valley. It looks suitable for agriculture, and he finds a place where he wants to land. He says that this time he will land first and destroy everyone who comes down after him. He says that after the first game, it kept repeating over and over again in his head. He also made numerous mental simulations for the second game. He waited for this day and acted as planned. We see a man walking through the forest, and he says he doesn't know what happened. This happens when he feels nauseous, and Sayawoon appears behind him, and the guys wonder where his partner James fell. Sayawoon makes a sudden attack, breaking his barrier with a spatial strike. He falls to the ground. He is told that the opponent is only knocked down and must be finished with the last blow before the comrade gets up. And Siwoon says it's nice that there is such a system. He turns around and looks at James Flynn's attack. Sayawoon says this is bad, and it must be his teammate. James asks if he killed his comrade and says that from the wound it is clear he specializes in close combat. He says that because the unstoppable fists technique is based on bare hands, the most important thing is how to act against opponents with bows, spears, or swords. In real life, you can't handle such weapons because he only practiced this technique in his imagination. The thought that he could try it in the game amused him a little, and he involuntarily smiled. He sits down again and says this will be fun. James rushes straight at him, and we see Siwoon preparing. He raises his fist and counterattacks directly at James's weapon with his bare hand. To the side, throwing James Khan far away. James cannot believe that he shortened the distance and changed the trajectory of his attack so quickly. Sayawoon now realizes that this is his cha. Again used spatial strike, pierced James's chest. Say that the wound lays his leg on the head and twists it outward. Stomps with his feet, removing Bro's head and turning it into mist. No matter how much he trained, there is nothing better than mastering it in the game. So, 4 people remain in this zone. I still don't know if that other guy was his partner. Then an attack flies from the side. Sayawoon notices at the last moment and dodges under. Below. He wonders where this arrow came from and decides to follow its trajectory. When the arrow flies in and approaches, he says it must have been shot from one of the side houses. He does exactly that, because now he constantly dodges every attack. Running, he said that if they are so accurate from afar, he initially thought it was Zurachana, but they are not as strong as him. He begins to think that they are alone, or that they are being chased by a teammate. He jumps over the wall and says it doesn't matter as long as he knows where the archer is. If he catches one, the other will come out too. If this were the previous game, he would hide in every house during farming. But now, having aimed at the key to life, the enemies have become just fuel that he absorbs. We see 2 arrows flying in, and one of them pierces his head. But then he disappears, and we see that it was only a shadow clone. The archer is puzzled, saying he was sure he hit him exactly, and Sayawoon's leg begins to come through the window. And the guy is still wondering why he disappeared, and he gets kicked in the head. His nose started to bleed, and Sayawoon says he finally caught him. And Sayawoon now realizes that it is a cloak of invisibility, and that man is preparing to attack. Sayawoon notices his shadow at the last moment, and when the attack, it flies in, he barely dodges, and it hits the door directly. Sayawoon doubts if someone approached from behind and ran away, so he looks out the window and notices him. Sayawoon says the guy instantly changes position, and we see him land on the ground. He puts his foot on the windowsill and jumps up. He doesn't know where he got that cloak, but attacking him during the day in that cloak was a big mistake. The object is something you can easily reach the top with, just by sitting in ambush, and if he surrenders, he should just die and give up. He apologizes to his teammate, says he was chasing him, but he turned out to be faster than he seemed. The teammate says that if he is his ally, he must protect him. At any cost. The elf says he doesn't see in Siwoon although the archer says they just need to kill him, and it doesn't matter. Sayawoon says he should have taken him when he had the chance, and now he is 2 against 1. And then he smiles and says he might be able to use those numbers. The guy's teammate rushes at him and says the wound is coming back. The archer makes a shot, say the point of injury. Then Sayawoon runs and clasps his hands together, preparing to make a shot. The archer calls him slippery while he charges a triple shot, and he shoots it. Actually, it's called a triple shot, I just guessed. And the guy says he never misses, and we find out his name is Alex. But the real Siwoons were above them and watching. Alex says this time he definitely caught him while Sayawoon attacks. Say that the wound hits right behind him and says it's arrogant. He dealt him a strong blow to the stomach. He says that just because their eyes suggest he is somewhere doesn't mean he is really there. Since Alex was knocked out, he has to finish him quickly. A teammate says he uses strange magic, so he must be an illusionist. Sayawoon says he is just a student who returned, and if he wants to save his ally, he will have to eliminate him. He lunges at Sayawoon, and Sayawoon responds by lunging at him as well, and Sayawoon counters with the same counterattack he used on James. He says the key to counterattacks is the point from which the attack comes. You approach and aim directly at it, the shoulder. But when Sayawoon moves in, his hand gets cut, and uses an attack called Bloody Rush, which cuts deeply into Sayawoon's side. Sayawoon says the sword feels completely different from a spear, and he was badly cut. If he hadn't protected himself with internal energy, his hand and the rest of his body would have been torn apart. The guy says it's strange. His sword didn't cut as deeply as he expected. Addicted. And probably he uses some tricks like those illusions from before. But he's not entirely sure. Sayawoon says that if he can't finish him off with one strike, he only has a counterattack left. He thinks about how exactly he can counter his movements. He says there is no penalty for failure in this round, and he has to take a risk and try something. Instead of looking at him, he will feel his energy and deadly intent. If he can't even overcome this, then he shouldn't even dream of first place. He spent 2 months practicing all the ways to use internal energy. So after training with Dakian, he was no longer the same. Because in reality, he was one of the few who had a rare talent for its use. Sayavuna was pressed headfirst to the ground. He holds the attacker by the hand, and the attacker wonders how he managed to so easily fend off the final attack. Sayavun was surprised, but felt as if he had broken through a wall. It was him, and we learned that his name was Carl, and now the number of players is 196. Sayavun said that strong guys, as expected, have a lot of internal energy, and it seems he farmed a lot. He receives a recovery scroll and asks if he wants to use it. He says, of course, he needs to recover a bit and gradually start farming. He looks at Alex's cloak and asks why he got upset and ruined the thing. And also he needs to find a craftsman with special skills or a special crawl to repair it. He says that if he had this item, ranking up would be easy, but he will still keep it with him and wonders what else there might be. He receives a bow called the Poplar Bow, struck by lightning, which allows him to shoot arrows with weak lightning energy. He says he felt nothing from the arrows that guy shot, and picks up the skill book of multiple shots, which allows him to release several arrows at once. Sayavun says that the guy wasn't even an archer, he just learned it in the game. He decides that there won't be any harm, and it's worth trying because he learned it. Then he raises the bow and shoots several arrows. He says it's better than the crossbow he had last time, and is sure it will come in handy. It seems there is still one team left in his area, but he decided to rest and gather resources before continuing. Maybe because these are just village houses? But there is nothing here except crap. And he wonders how that guy got the cloak of invisibility in one of these buildings, saying he got it very low. He says the door is locked. It seems no one has been here yet, and he wants to start a real mukbang. He goes upstairs, saying he hopes to get something good, like the cloak of invisibility or rings, and he is almost at the top. He says that sometimes everything goes according to plan, and sometimes it just annoys him. And he says they work without any worries and wonders if they have something good, because if they do, it will be hard for him to resist them alone. He points to his tower and says they can come here. One of them tells his partner Kilroy that the door is already locked, so there is no one here. When Sayawun observes from above, they even point out that he missed the healing scroll. Sayawun says he missed it because of a pile of junk around, but it turned out to be a useful truck. Damn, he just falls right on them. He says that if they rejoice at the healing scroll, it matches their level and the equipment they have. Their skills are not scary. Bro is about to flop belly first onto one of these guys. The plot took an interesting turn, but since these are all the available chapters for now, I won't be able to make the next part for some time. I really liked it because the story is quite unique, especially in how the genres combine, for example Muram, fantasy, and a battle royale element, which at first seemed boring, but is done in a way that is interesting and memorable. I even said in old personal thoughts that I was surprised how well it works, and now, having seen more, I still think so. The way it relies on the formula where players turn into chests after death is very pleasant. The races were also quite good. Not too fast, not too slow. The story gives space to catch a breath and doesn't drag on. Character development is still little, but what there is focuses around Sayawun. But changes begin when he realizes that all this is just a game. There is something deeper behind it, like greed, survival instinct, or an uncontrollable desire to become stronger. As soon as he gets that ring of power and feels the surge of strength, it's instant gratification. The same with his first kill and magical reward. It creates a tight dopamine loop, and you feel it every time he levels up. Especially after the final blow to Sagwang, he becomes a real beast. But I like the balance. He doesn't keep everything, for example the key of life, which prevents the events from turning into power fantasy too quickly. It was a bit awkward to fight with children, but that was how he was. The idea that he can retain skills and items between playthroughs and carry them into his own world is also very cool. It's like constant upgrades in a roguelike game. I was also genuinely surprised when we noticed a hint that other people are being drawn into Floyd's survival. That small world-building detail with an organization trying to keep everything secret was very successful. I had guessed this earlier and said that players might start appearing all over the world, so maybe this will grow into a full-fledged thing like Earl PUBG. Now let's talk about the fight. The fight is smooth and fluid, very pleasant to read. Every spell and every ability should feel powerful, and that is very important. I won't lie, but the way the fights are shown makes them truly deserved. It wasn't only when the explosion covered the entire panel. The way the action smoothly transitions from panel to panel elevates the whole scene. Moreover, his unstoppable strike, which seemed like it would never lose but turned out to be quite strong, was funny. The poor guy who created it just didn't have inner energy. The shadow clone skill is also pretty cool. Every time he gains a life key by killing someone, it's pleasant. And I especially like how this smoothness is felt in non-combat scenes. Such energy elevates the entire experience. I used to think so. I had some predictions, and here is what they were. This was in my previous personal thoughts, but I had some predictions that were quite... Yes, for example, the mention of players when he was scrolling through sad news, and the forces remained in the real world. I will make a few now. Now, perhaps, the organization will try to put a leash on him, and he will have to prove that they cannot restrain him. But I can't wait to see what he will show in the second match. The two-player game is really very interesting, and this series, in my opinion, is very cool.